Welcome to Cashflow Savannah, episode 48. Chandler, how are you?
I am doing good. How about yourself?
I'm good. We have a great subject today because
Uh,
long-term rental rates have been shooting up here in Savannah, and we have lots of long-term rentals that we manage at Sid was here, so we are not upset about that.
yeah, not at all. So,
Yeah. So Chandler and I had a very interesting meeting with one of our owners on Monday, and it brought up a different subject. And I said, hey, let's have a podcast episode about this because at Subas here, we can manage, short-term rentals and also long-term rentals. But I always want to ask the owner, hey, what are your qualifications for a tenant? Now, for a newer owner, obviously, we're going to make that decision because a lot of times they don't have an opinion. But this was a very seasoned investor, and I knew for a fact he would have an opinion. And of course, we're always here to do, as the property manager, we're here to do what the owner wants. So I
mhm.
made sure and chatted him up as we were looking at his rentals. And Chandler, he had quite an interesting answer. I said, hey, Mr. Owner, what credit score do you like to see on the application?
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. So we've seen multiple owners. Are you talking about
The one on Monday.
which was Monday?
Oh, we've seen a lot lately. It's okay. This is a very seasoned investor. And the biggest reason I asked was because his rentals are not in the most amazing areas. These are not million-dollar mansions.
I
These,
know the owner you're talking about now.
right. And so that's when I was like, seriously, I'm just giving you a peek into my brain as a property manager. I was walking through the neighborhoods and it's fine. I'm there every day. It's fine. But I'm thinking these are not going to be the most desirable rentals, right? Because it's not the historic district. So that is a big reason I asked him that question. I actually asked this question anyway, but it was interesting what he said when I asked that question. Do you remember what he said?
Yeah, he didn't care.
Yeah.
He
He said, I
flat
don't
out cared. So, he has a different take on it. I don't necessarily. It's probably not my route I would go, but hey, some people like doing different things. So,
Yes. But if you're going to purchase properties in the rougher sections of town, and this could be any town, not just Savannah, your expectation of the requirements are going to need to rise and lower based on the quality of the real estate. I'm sorry, I'm saying it. It is what it is. If you have a place in a rough section of town and you expected 800 or higher credit score, your house will sit empty. I'm telling you that as a professional in this business, it just is what it is. So
yeah,
that was my biggest question. And, just historically speaking, my portfolio we have been managing for a long time, and my areas are just kind of regular working class areas and some are nicer, but I don't have any, or I hadn't, before recently managed in the, you know, pseudo subject eight section. So I had years ago, we had always required, like Richmond Hill, Georgia is a great example. 650 and up would be our minimum credit score previously. But for some reason, Chandler, and I don't know what it is, ever since COVID, we've had a hard time, even in the nicer sections, from what I have seen, we've had a much harder time getting a 650s credit score. So at Sid was here for my rentals. Okay, I'm the owner. I can set this if I want to, no problem. I've moved down to 620. But
hmm
as I was walking through that portfolio on Monday, I was like, I think we're going to have a hard time in this neighborhood getting a 620 credit score. So my head, I'm like, I'm going to probably be looking for about a 550 credit score, which is not amazing. But when he said he doesn't care, and then after that, he said, well, my best tenant had a credit score of 435, which I thought was very interesting.
yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
it's different. And he had some reasons behind it. He was
yeah,
like, some people just have like bad experiences, and that was in the past. So that's like one thing he makes up for. And I mean, another thing is like, I'm pretty sure our credit card debt right now is the highest it's ever been.
right.
So I think a lot of people are using their credit cards right now, and it's pretty just it's a rough time. So I think credits are probably going to be lower than typical.
For sure. Well, and the other thing that has interested me in the last few years, this is new, is that they're now like Equifax and Experian and all those places, they're really valuing medical debt in a very limited fashion, which has never before happened. I can't tell you how many times we turned away tenants who couldn't meet the credit score, and what it was medical bills. But I'm really glad about that. I've had quite a bit of experience recently with some medical issues for someone in my family, and it's expensive. I mean, you're if you break an arm, you're not talking $500. It can be $10,000 very quickly. And I can see how people can very quickly get into medical debt, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad person or they don't have any money. It just means they're going to have to pay that over a long period of time. So that's a big change.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing to look at is like kind of like look at like why their credit score is so low, and that might help out at least.
Right.
So, another thing I want to say is like it's a good question. So when it's in a neighborhood that's is not the best, how much do you deduct from like the rent? That's the hardest thing is like even he deducted, he's like, all right, we think it's going to be this much. And we're like, no, I think it's going to be this much. It's even lower. How much do you typically would you say deduct if it's based on the neighborhood?
Well, the neighborhood is huge. Okay, the property needs to be nice, number one. I don't care what neighborhood it is. If I own the house, I want it in good repair. That's just me. But not everyone's going to say that. So if I'm seeing issues with the home and I'm seeing a rougher neighborhood, that's going to affect it. But really, what it comes down to are comps. And every time we go look at a property, we're going to comp it. Now, always the owner is going to want one number, but as the property manager, we tend to be the truth cannon, and you know, we're not doing anyone any favors to comp rent higher than what we know it's going to get. We're going to lose money. Okay. We're paying for photography. We're paying to advertise. We're putting staff time into this. And then also the owner of the property is losing money. They're paying the mortgage. So I can't say enough. I'd almost rather price it a little lower than a little higher just because if it sits, that's going to cost you a lot more.
Yeah, no doubt. It's kind of a tough thing to be in because especially in Savannah, comping is getting difficult. Everybody's putting their short-term rentals on Zillow. It's just like, what in the
Yeah.
world's going on? Um, but yeah, that was kind of one question. I was like, oh, I wonder how much we should deduct based on, because I see a lot of people, they're just going straight up with like as much as they can get. I'm like, oh, I don't know. And they end up sitting in
Right.
vacancies 8 months and
Yeah.
they're losing a ton of money. So you have to be really careful on that. I kind of let demand dictate my price. Like if you set it here and nobody's like calling about it, it's probably too high.
Yeah.
Set it here and everybody's calling about it, it's probably too low. So
Well, and the beautiful thing too is we're managing so much now. We have a pretty good beat on the market, what's going
yeah,
on. So I feel pretty confident when I give comps, but I'm
yeah,
also going to pull them. I'm also a big deal for me too. Like we use Rentometer, anyone can use it. It's a great
mm,
program. Zillow actually nails rents pretty well as well. But what I like about Rentometer is when I go on there, like when I was comping these properties on Monday, it said it was advertised there. The comp was advertised in May, and it's now June. So I have the address and the amount that they rented that they were advertising at. We never know what they've rented it at, but we know what it was advertised at. So that tells me I'm pretty sure it rented at what they priced it at, but who knows? But the closest one that I found, it had been listed in May, but it was already rented. It was no longer available. So that told me that it was rented very quickly. So I want my comps less than half a mile away, especially in Savannah, because Savannah is
uh,
so street by street, less than half a mile away. And then I want to see comps less than 3 months, preferably less than 2 months. Okay. Because, like I said, in the last 2 months, rent rates have gone way up. We've got high demand, all these jobs are starting, so I'm comfortable to go a little bit high, but I look very closely whether if the property was rented, let's say I'm going to say 1,500 just to be simple, and it's still for rent, that tells me a lot. If they listed it in May and it's mid-June and it still hasn't rented, that tells me a lot right there.
yeah, no doubt. That's one thing I would say, like if you're listening for out of state investors that are coming here in Savannah, like please just be careful. We've seen it uh, multiple times. Like, oh, we comped it at this price, and we're going to list it here, and the agent just didn't want us to tell them. No, I don't know about
Yeah.
that. So just be careful. Either get an investor friendly agent that's been doing it, or call some property managers or something
Yeah.
before you go and buy the house, and then it's like, okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
And run your own numbers. Jill and I can tell you rent numbers all day, and we're going to try to be as honest as we can because, again, the better you do, the better we do, right? But run your own rent numbers. we have had one person that was like $700 over on what they wanted and to what we said they could get.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's not when you have a spread that's wide, you've got a problem. Someone's wrong. It's most
But yeah,
likely going to be you, the out-of-state investor, but check it.
yeah, no, you can, but the thing about Savannah though is like you can run your own numbers and still think it's it's this. You're like, oh, half a mile away, and I'm just getting this rent. Like half a mile is a big difference.
Right.
Like I know the property we went Monday, like in half a mile
Yeah.
is a big difference. Um,
You can be
so
in West Savannah and half a mile later be in the historic district, and you cannot comp those two. Those have
yeah, so
on each.
even you running your own numbers can be pretty dangerous. You have to like, I'd probably just call like five different people and get five different numbers, and then kind of, all right, they're all kind of the same. That makes sense. But if you're calling five different people and one saying 3,000 and one saying 2,000 and one saying 1,200, like you're like, okay. But yeah, just be careful with that. I bet a ton of out-of-state investors run into that.
Oh, yeah, I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Well, and one other thing I want to bring up that has not changed in qualifying a tenant, and I've been doing this a long time, income requirements. I cannot say strongly enough, three times the rent in income or nothing. Like, don't allow yourself to go to two, two and a half. You're going to want to, but if they can't afford that rental, at some point, those checks are going to stop coming and you've got a problem.
Yeah.
And when we make sure they have three times the rent or more in income, we don't have a problem. I've seen it over and over and over.
Yeah, no doubt. So do your due diligence, get you a good property manager. We are doing long-term rentals, so if you have a long-term rental, reach out to us.
Absolutely. Or a short-term rental. We love them all. So
Yeah, short-term rentals for sure. We've been doing that for a while. So, um, but yeah, we appreciate you coming on and listening today. We know it was a short one, but just short and sweet is what we want to do. So, please like, comment, subscribe. Also, if you have something that you want us to talk about, let us know. I know there's always something that you're kind of like, oh, I want to hear about this, and we will gladly either us two talk about it or we'll go find somebody that can come on and talk about it. So, let us know, please. But we will see y'all in the next episode. Thank you.
bye-bye.